Senator Cruz, thanks for coming back on so soon after your last visit here, and I appreciate that. I just want to ask you a bigger picture than the little kerfuffle at the border today, which could have been anything, whatever it was or wasn't anything. What has Donald Trump got hold of here in the biggest possible picture? I don't think it's just immigration. What is it that is grabbing the emotions, the thoughts, the hopes, or whatever, the fears of the Republican voter who's talking to these pollsters?
Well, listen, I like Donald Trump. I appreciate that he's focusing on illegal immigration. It's an issue I've been fighting a long, long time. I think people are very concerned, for example, about the problems of sanctuary cities, and that is something that people are finally turning their attention to. You know, we had just this week in the Senate Judiciary Committee a number of the family members of people who've been murdered by illegal aliens with criminal convictions the Obama administration has released. I had an exchange with the head of immigration enforcement under the Obama administration, where I asked her why the Obama administration in 2013 released 104,000 illegal aliens with criminal convictions, including 198 murderers, over 400 people convicted of sexual assault, over 16,000 drunk drivers. She couldn't give an answer, and I think people are understandably very concerned that this administration refuses to enforce the law and is releasing people with serious criminal convictions that shouldn't be in this country and are here illegally.
Are you against local cities like New York City under Giuliani, where they basically didn't turn in everybody every time there's a police incident? Or how strong would you be in terms of turning people in at the local level to ICE?
Look, sanctuary cities are wrong. The city of San Francisco, we've seen the murder of Kate Steinle, who was out on the pier, was shot and murdered. San Francisco is a city that proudly calls itself a sanctuary city. With the case of the illegal immigrant and career criminal who murdered Kate Steinle, the federal government had put in what's called a detainer, a request that when he was released, they be notified so he could be deported. And the city of San Francisco refused to honor that detainer, defied federal law. And Kate Steinle's dead because of it. And I've joined with a number of senators in a common sense amendment in the U.S. Senate to provide that federal funds will not be provided to cities and local jurisdictions that actively frustrate federal law, and that in effect release violent criminals to endanger the safety and security of men and women across this country.
When somebody's arrested in a locale like San Francisco or New York, do you think they should be, if they're arrested and they find out that they're not here legally, should they be turned over to the immigration authorities?
I think we should enforce federal immigration laws, and I think we should not have local officials.
Cities should turn them over.
I think we should comply with the law. You know, it's an amazing thing that people treat it as unusual that we should follow the law. When I asked the head of immigration enforcement, why did the Obama administration release 104,000 criminals, people with separate criminal convictions who were here illegally, she couldn't answer me. You know, Chris, I asked the question, how many murderers did the Obama administration release yesterday who was here illegally? Okay. She said, I don't know. That ought to trouble anybody, anybody with children that doesn't want murderers on the street.
I think you should talk to Rudy Giuliani about this, because the urban officials, like mayors of big cities, they're afraid, I think they've been learned to be afraid, that if you turn everybody you deal with over to ICE, to the immigration authorities, you won't get any cooperation from the communities in getting information. They'll just see you as the deporters. Isn't that a danger to consider, or not?
I will suggest the very simple principle that we should enforce the law and we should keep violent criminals off the street. So in 2013, 16,000 people with drunk driving convictions. Right. You know, imagine if your loved one, if someone in your family was killed by a drunk driver that the federal government had in custody who was here illegally, and they simply released that drunk driver. At the testimony, at the hearing in the Senate, we heard testimony from a man whose brother was killed by a drunk driver that had been released by the government. It doesn't make any sense.
But you're coloring the immigration issue heavily in the area of crime. Do you think it's fair to say that when you're talking about immigration, to quickly go to the issue of crime levels in big cities? Do you think they're related that closely?
Well, I'm focusing very directly on illegal aliens with criminal convictions. when the Obama administration releases 104,000 illegal aliens, all of whom had a separate criminal conviction, yes, there's a direct connection there. When you release 193 illegal aliens with homicide convictions, yes, there's a direct connection there.
Well, I agree with that, of course. Let's go back to the latest polling here. It's fascinating. Look at the Washington Post ABC poll. Donald Trump is up there, and many others are down. Trump's up by 20 points just since May, just a few weeks ago, while Rand Paul's down 5, you're down 4. Ruben and Santorum are down 3. And so there's an old rule. You remember Gresham's law from economics? Bad money drives good money out of circulation. What's it feel like to be driven out of circulation? Because everybody else seems to be pushed down while Trump goes up. Is that good for the Republican Party?
Well, I'll tell you what we're seeing on the ground is enormous support and enthusiasm from the grassroots. You know, everyone just filed their fundraising records. Out of 16 Republican candidates, you know which candidate raised the most hard money of the entire field? We did. We raised $14.3 million. We beat Jeb Bush, who's in second place, with $11.3 million. And what's amazing, Chris, is that came from 175,000 contributions in all 50 states, all 5 territories. The average contribution was $81. It came from roughly half the zip codes in America. And I'll tell you why. People are looking for someone who will stand up to the Washington cartel. Right now, I'm in the Senate, and the reason is we're having a fight over the Export-Import Bank, a classic example of corporate welfare. And let me say, Chris, your party, the Democrats, who uses a lot of rhetoric, about opposing big business and big money. The Democrats, virtually all of them, are supporting this cronyism and corporate welfare. The one person who's standing up strong is Bernie Sanders. This is an issue where Bernie and I are in complete agreement. We need to end this corporate welfare. But far too many Democrats, and I will readily admit, far too many Republicans are supporting hundreds of billions of dollars of loan guarantees to giant corporations at the expense of the taxpayers. I think people are fed up with that. They want someone who will stand with the working man and woman against the bipartisan corruption of Washington.
Is that a strategy on the right to build up Bernie Sanders?
Well, I've said for a long time, I like and respect Bernie Sanders because he's honest, he's candid. You just did it.
You took an opportunity for a call out there to build him. What is the strategy to build up Bernie Sanders from the right-wing perspective?
Chris,
now that we're identifying each other.
I respect honesty in politics. Bernie admits he's a socialist. We can have an honest debate.
Well, he is a socialist. He doesn't admit it. You admit you're a Tea Party guy. That's not an admission, it's a fact.
But the difference is I think there are an awful lot of Democrats in the United States Senate whose policies are every bit as liberal or every bit as socialist as Bernie's, but they don't admit it. I'm enjoying watching Hillary Clinton explain to the voters how she's just as much of a socialist as Bernie Sanders. I'd rather an honest
debate. Well, that would be a mistake, and you know that would be a mistake, and that's why you're saying it. If she goes out there and matches Bernie and lets him lead her around, she'll end up looking and sounding like him, which will take her from the center. Let me ask you about you.
But Chris, let me ask you. Okay. Let me ask you a question on this. We were talking about the Export-Import Bank. The reason I focused on Bernie Sanders is because he's one of the few Democrats with the courage to stand against it. Let me point out another Democrat that had the courage to stand against it. Then Senator Barack Obama. When he was a senator, he said the Export-Import Bank is a classic example of corporate welfare. Now that he's president, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party, they get contributions from big lobbyists in Washington. Now he's for corporate welfare. Bernie is being honest about this, and I wish both the career politicians and the Democrat and Republican Party.
I mean, you're getting so enthusiastic. I know what you're up to. It's called troublemaking. Let me ask you about your party. We're watching how this debate's working out. Top 10, Roger Ailes, fine. They got a top 10 limit. Some are in, some are out. What happens if the convention next summer picks Jeb Bush and John Kasich to be your ticket, and the other side picks Hillary Clinton and Sherrod Brown? So you got two centrist tickets, at least at the top. Isn't that going to drive the Tea Party crazy? Crazy that you've been cut out of presidential politics.
Let me be clear, by the way. No one in their right mind would describe Hillary Clinton and Sherrod Brown as a centrist ticket. That would be a far-left ticket. And let me be clear also, in that race...
Really?
Hillary and Sherrod would win because you'd turn out the far left base and millions of conservatives would stay home. That race would make you very happy, Chris, because the way for Republicans to win...
You are beating the drum for Bernie Sanders and Sherrod Brown tonight. This is their game. I know what you're trying to get Hillary out of position, go chase them. I'm asking you, are you in position to decide between a third-party candidate of the Tea Party people if you have to take on Jeb Bush in a general election because you're stuck outside the contest? If you get a Jeb Bush in there, you can't vote for Bush. You're not one of those guys. You never vote for Bush.
I'll be unequivocal. I am not a third-party guy. I am running in the Republican Party. I will support the Republican nominee. But if we nominate another candidate in the mold of a Bob Dole or a John McCain or a Mitt Romney, all of whom are good, honorable men, but what they did didn't work. If we do it again, the same millions of conservatives who stayed home in 08 and 12 will stay home in 16, and Hillary wins.
Just to tie up that thought, and you've been very clear tonight, is Jeb Bush in that mold?
I'm going to let him speak for himself and the Republican primary voters answer that. I agree with Reagan. The way we win is we paint in bold colors, not pale pastels. And I'll tell you something that'll worry you, Chris. As I travel the country all over the place, men and women stop me who say, I'm a Democrat, but you're fighting for me and I'm with you. That's something that's got to terrify the heck out of a lot of Democrats. We saw in the last 50 years, there's one Republican who has a group of Democrats named after him. Reagan Democrats. When you paint in bold colors, you build a broad coalition.
Well, you're a Bernie Sanders Republican from what I've heard tonight, but thank you for coming on. I understand entirely the strategy you're up to. Senator Ted Cruz being very strategic tonight.